Hi there, everyone. You have likely heard of plotters. You have likely heard of pantsers. But what on earth is a plantser? Hi there. My name's Lisa Oliver, and I am a self published author and have been for the last 10 years. If you want to learn anything about me, what I write, and what I do, you'll find all my links below. But today we're going to answer the question of what on earth is a plantser, and why should it matter to you if you're writing your first book? For ever since I started writing, I've been a pantser. And a pantser is somebody who has an idea about their genre, which is really important. And for me, I know who my main characters are going to be because I put pictures of them up on my little board here by my computer. And then that's it. I let the idea of who they might be mull around in my head for 5 minutes, and then I sit down, open a Word document, and I start writing. That is it. A pantser likely has no idea how their story is going to end. And indeed, I have written books and been more than halfway through and not had any idea how my story is going to end, except that because I write paranormal romances, of course, they're going to have a happy ever after by the end. But how they'll get there is a totally different story. That's a pantser. And a lot of people enjoy being a pantser because their story grows organically. There's a lot more emphasis on character-driven plots. It works very well for character-driven plots. And there have even been authors, myself included, who have, suggested that their characters kind of guide them in some way as to how the story is going to go. There are also other people that will tell you that that's a whole lot of woo-woo nonsense and, not to pay any attention to it. But regardless, it doesn't matter. For me, it works. I see my characters in my head. I see the scenes as they play out, and I just type them. And that's a pantser. That's what a pantser does. On the other side of the coin, you've got plotters, and they are such remarkably, amazingly organized people, which is why that's not me. But they have everything all mapped out. They know everything about their characters. They know all about their backstories. They know what they like to have for breakfast. They know what their inside leg measurement is. They know everything there is about the characters and everything about their world and everything that is going to happen chapter by chapter by chapter before they even type chapter 1. They have it all mapped out, and what they've basically done is they've spent a considerable amount of time and a lot of thought to make sure that when they come to writing their story, they are basically filling in the gaps of an outline that they've already meticulously prepared. It is quite phenomenal how it's done. I've always been slightly jealous because, when there have been times where my characters aren't talking, or I might get stuck in my story, when it would be really nice to have an outline or a plan of what's going to happen next. But I don't, because that's not how I write. And that is what a plotter does. But the other day, I was talking to my daughter, who, if you've been following this channel at all, you know that she's a relatively new author now. She's actually had her first year publiversary just recently, and has already got, I think it's 6 or 7 books out. So she's doing really well. But she'd said to me that no, Mum, she wasn't a pantser, she wasn't a plotter, she was a plantser. And in 10 years, I had never heard that term. And from what I can understand, a plantser is a happy medium between a pantser and a plotter. They are somebody who doesn't have all that meticulous detail of a plotter, but has a rough outline. And this is something that my daughter does. Apparently, she has She's like me in the way she chooses her characters. She pantsers that, she just gets a feeling or a vibe. She knows she wants her characters to have particular personalities she wants to showcase in her stories, and she has that, and that's all really organic. But then when it comes to, she might set up how they might meet, or that they're dealing with some sort of confrontation. But then she says, she roughs out a rough guide, not chapter by chapter, but more like section by section, about what's going to happen in her story next. And then she already has an idea on how her story's going to end before she's finished writing it, which is, completely different to me. So there is room for that. And I do feel that that's quite, for new writers in particular, it is really tempting to just dive in and write, especially with NaNoWriMo coming up in the beginning of November. That is how I got started. I started writing my book, my first ever fiction book for NaNoWriMo, 2013. So it is almost 10 years to the day when I first started writing my first fiction book. And I just, because I hadn't actually given it a lot of thought, but I had seen videos and that about people preparing for NaNoWriMo, and I'd gone on the site and I'd learned what it was. And I am not a plotter type. I'm just not that type of person. So I just sat down on November 1st, 2013 and started writing my first novel. And I had that one finished and the first half of my second one done by the end of November. Actually having that discipline of doing NaNoWriMo, I found really helpful for me. I was in a situation where I was sort of empty nesting. I didn't have anybody at home anymore. I was still married at the time, but my husband was out working all the time, and NaNoWriMo really filled in a void for me. And I'm always credit them the success I had in actually getting started, because when you do NaNoWriMo, you can have as little or as much interaction with other people in your area as you like. I just wanted that accountability of getting the words down every day. And at the time, it was 3,000 words a day for 30 days. And I did that. And I was really thrilled that I had. So if you're thinking about that, though, see, I didn't have any planning going in. I knew what genre I enjoyed reading, and I wanted to write the book I wanted to read. Those two things were really important to me. But if you're looking at going into NaNoWriMo this year, and if you're somebody who's always dreamed about writing a book, I'd strongly suggest that you do. And you want to start plotting, though, what are we today? I'm recording this on the 8th of October. You probably want to start now, because from what I understand with the plotting side of things, that can be quite extensive and take a lot of time. But then your writing is so much easier when you come to do it. The only flaw I see in a plotted story is that if, as you are writing the actual dialogue and the actual action and everything else, and your story seems to want to skew off on a different direction, I mean, what do you do then? Do you change the plot, or do you force the story into the plot you've already contrived? I can't write like that. But planters seems to be the answer. If you have a rough framework of where you want your characters to go, and a couple of little prods, in the first section in your beginning, they're going to do this, 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 and this. And in the middle, they're going to do this, 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 and this. And then at the end, they're going to do this, 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 and this. And that might be all it is. But sometimes that can be enough to give you the confidence to start writing and to continue writing when things get a little bit mucky. When you've got a loose framework like that, it's a lot easier to tweak. It's a lot easier to change. And you can, like, say, for example, your character right in the middle of the book suddenly has this great brainwave, or you learn something new about them that you actually didn't know because you hadn't plotted it. It just came out. Then instead of panicking because it doesn't fit with an established outline that you've done, or your chapter outlines that you've done, you can just go and say, oh, okay, well, if he's that, okay, well, we can just tweak this, and this, and that's it. And you're done. So I quite like the idea of a pantser. I'm going to admit I'm still going to be a pantser. It's what I am. It's what I do. And while there are a lot of times, particularly in the soggy middle of a book, where I wonder what on earth I'm doing, where on earth me and my characters are going, and how on earth we're ever going to get this book finished, it has all worked out in the end, and it normally does. I trust that process. But for those of you who might not want to spend the weeks and sometimes months that people spend plotting their story, but they're not prepared to just wing it like some of us do, then maybe you could be a pantser and you could start writing your first story. If you have any questions at all, please drop them in the comments below. If you want to see me make videos on any aspect of book writing, self-publishing, or marketing, again, drop them in the comments below, or there are links in the description to where you can find me. I'm always happy to hear from you. And in the meantime, I will simply ask you to hug the ones you love, my friends. Please hit the like and subscribe button. And until the next video, we'll catch you then. Bye.